Okay, so we're going to finish up here with our little section right here, and we'll talk a little bit about another technique or strategy that's made to make patrol better. And so this often falls under the banner of problem-oriented policing. Or sometimes called POP. So the goal then is to really focus on unique, specific problems. So what do we mean by this, right? So this isn't something, if we thought about like crime, right? So let's say that we had crime and, maybe there was burglary, or maybe like if we talked about robbery, or, we talked about just larceny, petty theft kind of stuff. So if we think about all these things, right, I think most of us agree that these are problems in a society, right? But these are not good enough. Not why? Because they aren't very specific, right? So what POP tries to do when we say we want to add specificity to understanding a problem is that we're talking about things, let's say that we're looking at robbery. And if you think about like an actual incident or a pattern of incidents, right? These usually, if you want to find something that you can address, rather than just the random one, you look for like a pattern or an established pattern. So this is going to, so what like would constitute something that can be like observed in a pattern. So you can, look at the time of day. So do these happen at night? Do they happen in the day? Do they happen on the weekend? So it could be, day of the week as well. It could be, is it, approximate to an event of some kind? There's also issues related to weapons or motive. So someone is, drug induced or not. If it involves co-offenders. If this involves for what, right? So we include all these things, right? It could also be location, so where these crimes are occurring. It could also be the mood of what's going on, of the community and things like that. The available, or what is exactly being stolen or robbed, so available goods. No? Okay. Goods and so on. So all these things help inform a pattern and can help identify a specific problem. You could also look at into characteristics of offenders. So is it mostly older people? Is it young juveniles and so on, right? So the point of this, and this is like something that should be a maxim for your life, is that with more information in a rational world, you can make a better decision. And so with that, then, if you have a better decision, then you can make a tailor-made solution to a problem. So when you have this then, so if it's tailor-made, you're able to find the solution to this problem, right? You can do a little things, right? So the first thing, there's something that's called the Sarah model, right? Which is usually you scan, oops, you know what? I should have done this way. So we call it let me erase here. So it's something that's called the Sarah model. And what this asks enforcement officers to do is to scan. We look to analyze. You create a response, and then you assess how you did. So what exactly does this mean in practice? So if we think about scanning, right, we're looking for things that grab our eyes. So looking for issues. So maybe this is, you notice that there are a lot of broken windows area, or that there are repeated calls about what's going on like in a situation, right? So if you're looking for issues, maybe there's like a drug problem, maybe there's, there are complaints coming on, and so on, right? Then you analyze it by looking for patterns and trends. So to add more details, to make things more concrete into like what happens, right? So if you're looking for patterns and trends, this is all really good because you can see what is similar, what is not similar, what is random, what is not. And that's really the point of it. The response then is, so you deploy a strategy to correct the problem. Maybe this means you talk to community leaders. Maybe this means that you send in more patrol cars. Maybe it's something where you put in drug treatment facilities. Maybe it's something where outside of drug treatment facilities, you put in more job opportunities. Is it a green space issue? There's a lot of different things that you can do. It depends on the problem, right? Maybe it's training officers to look for people who are carrying weapons and stopping those people, and so on. Bottom line is that for any kind of problem that you have, right? So if you're analyzing something, you think something exists, you develop and create a response. The last step then is to assess and figure out what you did. So if you figured out what you did, so like what worked, what didn't work, why or why not something did work, then you're in a better position to figure out something does. Now, if it's not working, then you repeat the process. Maybe you adjust your approach. Maybe that you talk to some other people a little bit more. Maybe you try a new strategy, or maybe it's more of putting multiple strategies together in order to make something effective as an outcome, right? So this is all really beneficial for creating a situation where you can figure out if you did anything or not. So one example of this that's something that's really popular is through hotspots policing. So when we think about hotspots, what exactly are we talking about? So with hotspots policing, right, this involves finding like high areas of crime. So this philosophy takes a position that crime is concentrated in space, and that tends to be true on a map. And of course, there are variations between what kind of crime type you want to address and so on, right? So you look for high areas of crime, and the goal is to deploy police officers to those spots in order to create a residual deterrent effect and also a visible deterrent. So when you send officers to an area, say that you think crime is going to happen, you send them there. They're sort of patrolling, keep an eye out on things, and so on. Excuse me. With that visible deterrent, you're able to make a determination whether or not something is effective or not. Not effective or not, but at curbing crime, right? So if we have somebody that's available and we know that that could be corrected through a police response, we want to do that, right? And so these are very targeted. And so they'll look at, at really small places, right? So maybe like a block or a block section or something like that. And, really trying to curb crime in specific areas to make the crime rate go down. Typically, though, this is it's proactive in the sense they find crime, but it's also reactive. But this is really more of a Band-Aid solution, because you constantly have to be patrolling, right? Because the goal is to create the sense of uncertainty in offenders that you could or could not be there, when a crime is occurring, then it really becomes an issue if no one's there, right? So, but if the crimes could always move, they could always adapt, change, things like that. And so there's always concerns about a diffusion of crime benefits and also displaced crime, because if you look at certain areas, if you target certain areas, aren't people just going to move around the corner? Which would make sense logically, right? So what we end up finding, though, more often than not, is that there's usually more of a diffusion of benefits, in that there is more crime, there is a crime reduction in surrounding areas once an area is targeted, in very few instances where crime spreads. That's what the evidence shows us, right? Is that there's very few instances where this happens. In general, crime goes down moderately. So the point being then is that while this is effective, right, it's also important to keep in mind that this is very expensive, because you have to have a specific unit that's going out patrolling all these hotspots, rather than having someone go in and take you away from patrol or traffic. You have to create a dedicated unit, so it's very expensive to do. It also does not relieve long-standing problems, and it's only this band-aid for a solution. But with that said, though, it'd be really nice if you guys went onto Packback and discussed possible ways to improve this kind of situation, and see what you find out. I'd be curious to read what you say. But for now, we'll leave this as is, and we'll say good night, sleep tight, and don't let the